Everyone, I'm excited today to bring you Nick Zamucen. Nick is a serial entrepreneur founding multiple franchises. Today, he's the founder and CEO of Best Option Restoration. So, welcome to the show, Nick.
Hey, Brian, appreciate it, man. Thanks, man.
Awesome. So, how long have you been in franchising?
I've been in the franchising space probably, 17 years now. I'm kind of old, been here a while.
Okay. And how'd you get into it?
I got into it you was the CEO of Black of gosh, what was it? Cold Stone Creamery. Couldn't remember who it was, but yeah, I met the CEO of Cold Stone Creamery out in Scottsdale, Arizona, years ago, and he just kind of told me the ebbs and flow of franchising, and it just kind of made sense. And I went, I like that model. I'm going to go ahead and continue to I can help people grow a franchise or never grow a business, people that have never been in franchising before or any business in general, and I can kind of help them and guide them along the way, and been thankfully pretty successful at it so far.
Awesome. So, what was your first entry into the franchise space?
First for me was Uncle Vito's Pizzeria. It was a
Okay.
pizzeria company out of San Francisco that I decided to invest in, and I was a partner in the company, and then it was a family owned business for I think they've been around since the 30s, 1930s.
Okay.
And I said, hey, you're doing some things that we can tweak. And as I got in there and tweaked it, I said, hey, what if we you know licensed it and kind of got into franchising that way, and just kind of exploded from that point.
Okay. And so, what did that look like in terms of how big did you grow that?
Oh, we didn't grow it that big. I mean, it was about 47 units nationwide. And then the company or the family wanted to exit eventually. And I said, well, I don't want to run this without you guys. So we ended
Okay.
up.
Yeah. So you were mainly kind of on the franchising side, and they were like the industry knowledge pizza restaurant experts
Yeah,
type
yeah. I
of
mean,
deal.
my family and their family knew each other. Heck,
Mhm.
I grew up, bussing tables and waiting tables over
Okay.
in high
Okay.
school,
All
so
right.
I knew the industry pretty well. I mean, my family had a background in food and restaurants, so I was like, it was just a natural fit.
Awesome. No, what happened from there?
Then I created a company called Sane Home Care. Sane Home Care was a non-medical home care company that it just, again, I looked at the space, and I like to kind of find niches and spaces. And I found a space, with the senior care market being so big. I'm gonna create a non-medical and easy barrier of entry for people to get into. Got that to a couple hundred units and then sold that, which kind of rolled me straight into Bio One. Bio One was the only at that time the only the I'll say it again, at that time the
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
and no one had franchised crime scene cleaning before me, and it wasn't even really an industry. And so we got that to 100 130 140
Yep.
units, and then sold that. And then
And how'd you find that one? Like, how'd you come up with that? This is a good business to be into franchise.
yeah, man. Once again, it was one of those. I was doing some research. I was actually in church, and a man had taken his life in the church. I
Oh
mean, not
wow.
in the church, but
Yeah.
I went to the
Member.
church,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the pastor had said, "Hey, we're looking for some people to go and help the family out." And we just and I knew a guy who was an EMT that actually took the body away, and we started talking. He said, who really makes a lot of money is guys who clean this up." And I went, well, gosh, if we can help some families out, and so we ended up creating a business. I mean, that's how it very first started, creating a business out of it, and said, why can't we just franchise this? I mean, I've done this before two other times, and hence it just started. I just decided I'm going to start franchising stuff and showing people how to do it.
Awesome. Yeah. It's an interesting business. Yeah. A lot of people don't think of it they don't even know it exists, right? Because it's not in your world until it is, and then obviously it's like
Yeah,
you know
no one
dramatic
wants to. I mean,
situation.
it's
Yeah.
not dinner table conversation.
Yeah.
We'll say that.
Yeah, I spoke with a guy. He had an independent business, but crime scene cleanup, and he was crushing it. Like
Yeah,
he made a ton of money, and he said a lot of it because the insurance companies paid,
right.
and it was about this inn, and then he sold that one to private equity. And then he found this guy in Florida, and he was saying how he wasn't billing. He was billing the insurance companies like half of what they were willing to pay. He just didn't know, and so he buys this thing, doubles the prices overnight, and then ends up selling that one to private equity for made millions of dollars in like a very short amount of time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Um,
the industry itself is a good industry. It's not, in my opinion, it's not overly competitive, but it is. It takes a certain type of personality to do it.
yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, what year did you exit that business?
I sold that in I think 2020, maybe
Okay.
2021. Yeah.
Awesome. And then what? Yeah. And then so let's talk about best option. That's been the next
Yeah,
current
yeah.
venture, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, over at the bio company, we were constantly hiring restoration companies to kind of come in after us, and the restoration companies were making us look bad. They weren't, customer friendly. They didn't care. I mean, they just wanted to get in and get out, because in the bio industry, we take up the floors, maybe some drywall, and so we'd hire restoration companies to come fix it for us. And again, they were making us look bad. So in 2016, I was like, enough of this. I'm going to create a company that actually cares about clients, puts customer service first, is a good representation of just a solid business guy, and it's just gone very well from that point. So best option restoration, and it got spawned out of necessity of just really wanting to help people and be a part of your community in the right way, not just go in and not be caring and slap things together. So it's you know presentation and customer service and just being a good human is extremely important to me. And that's I'm pretty selective with who I bring my franchises on.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, that's key. I mean, every franchise is in the people business, right? We just happen to fix a car, paint a house, restore a house, whatever it is, take care of grandma.
Right.
It's all the people, right? And it's about you picking great franchisees who are going to align with that, and then it's for the franchisees. It's us hiring great people who are going to follow the process and that we can be proud of.
Well, we tell everybody, I mean, this is, it doesn't matter what business you're in, like you're saying, it's all relationships.
Yep.
And so if you like people and you want to get paid pretty handsomely to do so, restoration, in my opinion, is a fantastic model.
Yeah. So talk to me about, I guess, what restoration. It's a big industry. There's a lot of different factors and stages in it. So what do you guys really focus on?
The biggest differentiator with us is thermal technology. So we do fire, water, and mold, and then the rebuilds. But what separates best option restoration from kind of the pack is the patented thermal technology that we use. So let's say it's called about dry out, in the sense of a water loss. We will literally build drying chambers rather than just trying to dry an entire room with cool air and eventually it dries. And, people have been doing that for 57 years. Yeah, it does work. It just takes, 7 to 10 days. What takes our competition 7 to 10 days to do, we usually are in and out in 3 to 4. So
Okay.
it's speed. We just kill them on speed. I mean, think of, washing your clothes, the old way of washing your clothes in a bucket and throwing it on a clothesline. In about 24 hours, it's dry from the sun and the wind. Or nowadays, we take it out of the washer and throw it in the dryer, and it's dry in about 45 minutes. So it's the same. It's the same kind of thought process, just with the technology behind it that we just literally heat spaces up.
Okay. And so what do you use? What's different about it, or what do you use?
Oh, it's the machines they're basically electrical. Think of them. The easiest way to describe it is electrical heaters, just like your drying unit at home. Just like your dryer. It's electrical units, getting a space dried to about 95 to 105 degrees, somewhere in between there. Don't want to go any hotter than that because then you start compromising the dehumidifiers. Dehus work best between 95 and 100 degrees. So we keep a unit in a just a specific confined space, and make sure that we heat it to the
Yeah.
again, not get it too hot.
Yeah. The
But
optimal temperature, and then you move it to the next
it,
spot.
yeah, well, I mean, and you'll build chambers. I mean, so
Okay.
so there's a chamber over there, there's a chamber over there. So it's faster. It's one of those things where I tell people it's not any cheaper. We're actually more expensive than the competition. I tell people all the time, we're not going to win on bids, but again, we build the insurance company. The homeowner pays their deductible. We deal with the insurance company.
Yeah. And so then are you more expensive to the insurance company than
Yeah.
the other one?
Yeah.
Because it's a different, because don't the other ones, they bill them like per day, per
Right.
machine,
Yeah.
right? So you obviously, it's different because you're in less time, but then at a higher rate.
Yeah, I mean, we still bill them per day per machine. It's just our machine rates are probably double of what theirs are. So the invoices, I mean, the average restoration job, let's talk about a water dry out. You're looking at $11,039. That's
Yeah.
your average job. I don't care if it's the standard way of just blowing fans and cold air or us.
Okay.
Their seven to
Yeah.
10 days is our 3 to 4, but it's still $11,000.
Got it. Okay. Awesome. So then is most of it insurance paid in that business?
Yeah, I'd say high 80%.
Yeah.
You're going to get those smaller jobs where it's a quick mold remediation where, you might be popping out some drywall or just really cleaning something. But yeah, high 80 percentile is insurance
Okay.
paid.
And then how do franchisees go about getting leads for the jobs?
We build a sales and marketing plan for every single franchise that comes aboard. So it's very specific. We talk about in training class exactly how to say things, when to say it, who to capture, who to leave alone, what days you want to see them, what days you don't. I mean, knowing what not to do is just as important knowing what to do. We handle all the SEO and
Yeah.
online ourselves here at corporate.
Yep.
Um, and we have 5 lead sources in the country that drive leads specifically to the franchisee's phone. So the franchisees start pretty darn quick. Usually within their first week of business, they're at least on their first job. It's very rare when they're not.
Yep. Okay. And then how much of it is it like boots on the ground, them going out, generating leads from insurance agents and just like relationships, plumbers, et cetera?
We tell them it's very important when if you there's 2 models. There's the executive model, then owner operator.
Yep.
So if you're the owner operator, when you're not on a job actually doing the work with your crew, you should be shaking hands and kissing babies. That's
Yep.
literally every day. I mean, we tell our franchisees literally how it works is your calendar will be full. We will fill your calendar up with things to do. Marketing events, sales opportunities. The only thing that stops that is a job. Now, if you're running the executive model, that's literally all you're doing. You're
Yep.
shaking hands and kissing babies. You're building a network. In the beginning, 80% of your work, 80% of the new franchisees' work comes from us, and
Okay. Yep.
20% will come from their efforts. We
Yep.
want to flip that at some point to where 20% comes from us and 80% is from their network. And that's when you're talking about a multi-million-dollar franchise.
Yep. Yep. Awesome. So how many franchises do you have today?
About 70, up and running about 73. There's 10 or so in the pipeline right now, but that just haven't opened yet. We just had a training class last week where we had 6 that are just clearly not open. It's going to take them a couple
Yeah.
of weeks. But
Yeah.
yeah, 73 up and running.
Okay. How long does it take from, I don't know, like a signing to launch? What does that look like?
Oh, it's quick. From the time they sign, the longest thing is when did they sign? Because we have training class every single month, and it's all spelled out for the year. So it's just when did they sign? When is training class? From the time they leave training class, they're usually open within 2 weeks.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Because I guess it's truck and equipment and they find a warehouse space or
Yeah,
not even that,
it's
maybe.
really it. I mean, we generally have all that for them before they hit training class. The biggest thing usually is the wrap. We try to get everything done before they hit training class, but sometimes unfortunately, it's just not possible.
Yep. Awesome. What's it cost?
All in less than 200,000. I'd say they're going to spend. I always tell people expect to spend or expect to have around 200,000. You're going to spend about 175 though. But I want at least 25,000 of operating capital in the bank. So less than 175, but I want you to have at least 25.
Yep. Yep. Awesome. Yeah. One of the biggest challenges I understand is the billing side of it, right? Getting
Yeah,
paid from insurance companies
sure.
and just like, what does that look like? How do you guys just like assist in helping people get paid?
We have a whole billing company that we work with that collects your invoices for them, so it's never an issue. I tell the franchises, you work on shaking hands and kissing babies, so
Okay.
let the billing company
So
collect.
the third party company, and then they
Yeah.
take a cut of it or
Oh
whatever.
yeah, I mean a very small portion. I mean we're talking a fraction of what the invoice is.
Yeah. Awesome.
And the and
Uh,
we and the billing company will the way we've negotiated with them is they'll adjust their invoices to where it usually costs the franchisees nothing. So they'll
got it.
they'll play with the numbers to make sure. I mean, because they know, look, if we're not if it's costing the franchisee money, a lot of times they're not going to use us. So they
Yep.
have to find a way to cover their own costs. Now, does
Yes.
it happen 100% of the time? No, but once again, high 80 percentiles, it doesn't cost the franchisee anything.
Got it. So sometimes the franchisee might miss billing something that they can bill for, right? And then
Yeah, or
is that what it is?
well, let's say a DHU, if you're charging $135 for a DHU per day and it's there for, let's just say 5 days, they might charge 165 and then negotiate it to 150 and boom, they
Okay.
paid for themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
Yeah.
they'll how they manipulate things without, the big thing is because the owner's name is George. I talk to George all the time and I say, look, here's what I don't want you doing. Don't ever bill for something they didn't do. He's like, no way, man, that's insurance fraud.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, so just
Yeah.
you can play with the numbers all you want, just don't put something in there. He's like, no, of course not. I've been doing this for a long time. And so the
Yeah.
billing company's pretty darn good at what they do.
Yeah. That's interesting. What does the financial performance look like? I mean, whatever you can disclose or talk about.
Yeah, I mean, last year, the average full time franchise, put about 790,000 on the books. I mean, our margins on that are in the high 60s. They're usually cash flow at about 50%. We have franchises that are part time guys that do 200,000 a year that just kind of take our leads, and our leads usually get between $200,000 and $300,000 worth of work usually. but again, to really scale, I mean, the top performers, top single unit performers are, a couple million a year. And if you stack three or four of those units, you're doing pretty handsome.
Okay. Yeah, that's, I guess labor's the biggest cost, the hardest part.
Yeah, yeah. Labor is generally, I mean, we pay our guys pretty well, and that's why we don't have a big turnover rate. So we talk about it. We talk about it in training all the time.
Yeah, how to find them, how to retain them.
Yeah, we have guys. We work with services that literally hand employees to our franchises, and they're already trained staff and ready to go. But you got to pay them right. I mean, I tell people. I just talked to them in training class last week. I said, guys, don't lose a great employee over $1.25 an hour. Just go ahead and pay him 35 an hour. And the industry standard right now is $19 to $27 an hour. I talk about our margins being so big and your cash flow being so good. What you don't want to do is lose an employee because you got greedy.
Yeah.
So pay your employees right and keep the good ones.
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome. What's your goal for the year in terms of size or success, or kind of what are your big goals this year?
As far as the growth, I mean, we brought on 32 last year. I think we'll probably hit 32 again, or at least 30. We always like to stay between 20 and 30. That's a pretty good pace for us, in my opinion. Unless you take on hundreds a year, and some franchises do it. That's fine. That's just not a model I've ever bought into. You get big, you can't support people. People start failing. I've had one failure in my system in 8 years, because we hold their hand every step of the way to almost ensure success. And I can tell you the one failure that I had, and it just happened like 2 months ago. The one failure I had, we found out he had a painting company that he was trying to feed his painting company restoration,
Paintwork.
give him the painting. And because we couldn't figure out, I'm like, why isn't this working for you? You're in a fantastic area. And it's because he wasn't doing this full time. He had a side gig that we didn't know about. So yes, I have to say, according to the FTC, that it's a failure. But as far as a true failure where they followed the system, man, I've never had one.
Yeah. Yeah. So what does support look like then? So I think it's good, right? You have this good pace that you can support, right? And maybe the ones that sell a ton, they have they invest a lot, obviously, to build a support team, because if they don't, that's where you get these big problems. So,
Right. Well, support for us is pretty simple. I mean, you're going to have every franchisee gets a mentor. So we call them the franchise mentorship program. So there's 7 franchise mentors in the company that are at least multi-million-dollar producers. They have elected as a group, and it started kind of from the franchise council, but they've elected as a group to take on these franchisees, these new ones, as kind of what we call them little brother, little sister program, and they will hold their hand every step of the way when
do you have
you get a job.
franchisees mentoring other franchisees?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
They've been in that program. They've been exactly where that new franchisee from step one. So every franchise gets themselves a mentor. And then we have Brian, Jordan, and Kyle here at corporate, who are, we kind of call them the franchise liaisons, that they can come, our franchises have questions or curiosities or not sure about this. If their mentor doesn't know or they don't like the answer, they call someone here at corporate. There's also monthly Zoom calls with all the franchises, so we get to know from one franchise if there's a certain marketing thing that's happening in Dallas, maybe it's going to happen in New Jersey. Try it in New Jersey, or try it in Utah, and so the franchisees kind of get to talk to one another every single month on a very specific Zoom call. Then we have quarterly trainings where we learn new skills and kind of get continuing education out of the way, and then finally annual meetings. Where that's the only thing that's mandatory, by the way, is the annual meeting. We want them at the annual meeting, because there's nothing like meeting your franchisees that you've been, over a Zoom call with, face to face, breaking bread, and really getting that family feel.
Yeah. Yeah. I've always said that's like one of the most valuable parts about being a franchise is the relationships you build with the people,
Right.
and in person. And sometimes it's not even the meeting, but it's like at the bar, and it's
Right.
afterwards, and it's like building the friendships. And then you got somebody to call, and you want to talk comp plans, or whatever random stuff that like they're going through the same thing you're going through,
100%.
and strengthen those relationships is key.
That's
So
right.
then, do the mentors have some sort of reward system or benefit from investing their time, or what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, the mentors get a lot more, perks, in the sense of the reason why you become a mentor is you'll come out to Vegas early. I mean, so our annual meetings are usually held in Las Vegas. So the mentors will come out, just like the franchise council. They'll come out and they'll have a lot of one-on-one time with management and myself and staff and team here. We'll talk about upcoming, what the year looks like upcoming. They'll go to dinners. Like we'll take them to do things like the mentor group. What was it last year? I took them out exotic, race cars. So
Yep.
you
Yep.
had the choice of Lamborghinis, Ferraris. Then we went in the desert and shot a bunch of, 50 caliber things that, I mean, it just
Uh,
becomes a couple of days of just fun. I mean, one time we went, base jumping out of a hot air balloon and, just they get to do things that the other, the
yeah.
standard
And they
franchise.
connect with other high performers and
Yeah.
yeah, and improving their business. I mean, the best way to learn something is to teach it, right? And the
Right.
better teacher they become, probably the better they become.
Yeah. And you have to be a very high performer in the company to be a mentor.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that say, "Hey, we want to be mentors too." I'm like, well, you're just not ready yet. You
Yeah.
will be. You're just not ready there.
Have you always done that, or is this the first
Yeah,
time you
I
kind of?
have. No, that's kind of been a key of mine is I like to build organically within the system. So it feels more, franchising, you hear this key of like, oh, you hear this term that, we treat them like family. If you ask my franchisees, they call me Uncle Nick for a reason. I'm not your dad. I'm not looking down on you. I'm not going to tell you what you did and what you did right and wrong. I'm just going to tell you the straight, honest truth. And like your uncle would. There's no feelings about it. So I don't try to play this daddy role. I'm more of
Yeah.
the uncle that sometimes I'm great, sometimes I'm a jerk. It just really depends on what you need.
Yeah. What do you think some of the, I mean, I don't know, from a franchisor's perspective, right? You've had a bunch of successes here, right? And
Sure.
I'm sure you've seen along the path a lot of other franchises kind of start and fail.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think some of the qualities it takes to be successful in your role?
In my role, it's patience. Understand that you're dealing with adults, not kids, and they're going to listen to you to a point. They're going to listen about 80%. But everyone has that entrepreneurial spirit once they get that little bug and they want to try things and they want to come to you and prove that they were right. And sometimes you got to, give them enough rope and, let them, let the leash go a little bit so they come back to you and say, hey, because maybe they come up with something that is fantastic. And I've had franchises do some fantastic things and come to me and say, this works. We got to release this to the group. And then I've had some franchises that try things and kind of fall flat on their face, and I come back and brush them off and say, okay, well, let's get back on the track. And so I think patience and understanding that you're dealing with people that have just invested a lot of times, 175,000, while it's not millions of dollars, a lot of times that's a good chunk of their 401k that they invested
Yep.
or their savings, and they had to buy into you. So you got to make sure that you're treating them, like business owners and like adults. I do find that franchise systems, franchisors, and I don't care if it's private equity owned or privately owned like mine, a lot of franchisors kind of treat their franchisees like kids. And, I don't take that approach. I want to make sure that they feel respected and heard, and we meet them where they're at, not always where I want them to be, but that's my job is to get them there.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a great point. And yeah, I've seen that, and I was part of a system like that earlier in years ago, where they treat us like, yeah, like kids or like employees, and it was like we're not employees, like we're business owners, and
Right.
we're to make our own decisions, and obviously we want guidance, and like we're buying into the systems and stuff. But once again, some of the best ideas do come from the franchisees, right?
100%. Yeah. And we want them to have an open line of communication to know that, they can come to us. And because the one thing, ultimate failure to me in a franchise system is a bunch of individual single units that don't communicate with each other. You want to build in my opinion, an ecosystem
Community. Yep.
that feeds on one another, that continues to grow.
Yep. Um, what are some other opportunities that you see in the franchise or space? Like if you weren't doing this, what would you be looking at?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm so hyper focused on this right now. At some point, people have asked me, they said, look, Nick, this is your fourth franchise organization. What's next?
Yeah.
I keep telling them this is my last one.
Yeah.
13 years from now, I'll be 60. And I told my wife, and by that time, I have three kids. My youngest will be in college. I told my wife in 13 years, I'm done. So I'm not looking at any other space in the franchise industry right now. And I'm gonna stay pretty,
Yeah.
hyper
Good.
focused on this.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But like from an approach of, I guess, somebody else who wants to kind of follow in your footsteps, a lot of it is just right identifying a need, right?
Right.
Where do you think a franchise could fit. And even in your case, like there's a ton of restoration companies, right? So it's in a need, but then it's like, what's a twist on it?
Right.
Is what you did in this one.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I
Cool.
try to find a niche that I could exploit. The franchise industry, or at least the restoration side of the franchise industry, had been doing the same exact thing for the last, oh gosh, 50, 60 years. And I saw that there was technology out there that no one was utilizing. And so I brought it to the space, which kind of gives us a unique selling point versus everybody else. So, uh, yeah, there are things out there right now that I'm sure, if I sat down and did some research and went to my coaches, because I have coaches like anybody else, and said, what's the next great thing? I bet we could find it. Just off the top of my head, I can
Yeah.
tell you what it
Yeah.
is.
What are some of the things? So I have a coach. I have an executive coach I've been with for years. What are some of the things that they have helped you with?
Oh gosh, for me, it's staying on track. Again, because I do look at other things, and I see different opportunities. A lot of times, I want to jump on them. Uh, my coach, Jay Abraham is who my coach is. I mean, everyone can look him up. He's they call him the $9 billion man for a reason. And when him and I work together, a lot of it is staying hyper focused on what I'm good at. And that's, I don't want to get into, running a couple franchises at a time. I did that with Bio One and Best Option Restoration. And, I ended up hiring an executive team to take over the company so I can focus on one. So for me, it's staying vigilant on what I'm good at.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I struggle with the same thing. I think a lot of entrepreneurs too. You're kind of in that visionary role, like you see the
Right.
opportunity. And, the motto I have now is focus on less than obsess.
Yep.
And so that is what I try to think about. And but then it's like identifying, well, what is the focus point? And sometimes these new things come into your world, and that new thing, while could be the thing that is the thing that will make you a lot of money, help a lot of people, right? Is the new
Right.
thing. It's just having this filtering system to be able to determine, is this a good idea or is this a distraction?
Right.
Uh, and then so you need to have systems. You need to be clear on what it is you want, right?
Right.
And then also, like, what's the best and highest use of your time?
Right. And for me, it's always relationship driven. It's sitting down with the franchises, making sure that they're happy and they're making money, because when they make money, we make money.
Yep. And it's easier to get more people in. Validation's stronger, right? Like
Right.
it's a flywheel that spins.
Yeah. Well, that's why when I'm talking to candidates on the phone, and almost every candidate from a consultant comes to me first, and I tell them, look, I go on our website, pick anybody you want. I want you to know exactly what you're getting into. Ask them the goods, the bads. Ask them, what do you love about it? What do you hate? Would you do it again?
Yep.
Our validation's strong for a reason, because again, it's the culture that you built from day one.
Yep. Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. Well, I don't have any other questions. Yeah, I was great to learn about your history, and you've got an amazing track record, and
Thanks, Brian.
excited to see kind of where you take best option here in the future.
Yeah, man. No, it was great having me. I appreciate it, Brian.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, bud.